So find your way into a comfortable seat and start with some wiggles. Rolling your ribs around, letting your shoulders get a little bit soft, maybe being a little dramatic. Whatever feels right for you just now. And then let your wiggles start to still. Close your eyes and come to the center. Deepen your breath. Feel your sit bones push down against the ground, and from your sit bones, feel your lightness as you lift up towards the sky through the middle of your spine, through the middle of your skull. Let your breath deepen and assist you in lifting your heart, expanding your chest. Noticing the quality of light even as it shines through your eyelids while your eyes are closed. Take a moment to dedicate your class to someone. Or to world peace, picturing the whole beautiful body of the earth glowing, shining, radiant, emitting light. And bring your hands to heart center. Let's sound 3 ohms. Empty your breath. Take a deep inhale through your nose. Relax your hands down, and let's come into wide-kneed child's pose with a twist. So take your knees as wide as the yoga mat, reach your feet back, and bring your right arm behind your left elbow and bring your right ear to the ground. Now, yogi's choice, if you'd like to go deeper, you wrap your left hand around behind you. So staying in the posture, apply the principles of yin. Allow small adjustments to really suit and fit your body, your biography. Then on purpose get soft and still. And then commit to stay. So whenever we find ourselves in a shape, it takes a moment or two to really feel what our breath is going to feel like in that shape. We can think of, as we move our body, we create all new forms, like we're re-sculpting an instrument every time. Notice how if after a little bit you settle into the pose, you get a little heavier perhaps. Feeling kind of the earthy nature of it. And then often it gets more intense. Then come back to center and wind your arms to the other side, keeping your knees as they are. So you're going to slide your right arm out and then thread your left arm behind your right arm, bringing your left ear onto the ground. Either staying here or reaching up and wrapping your right arm behind you. Notice even though the shape is very much like it just was on the other side, again, you have to kind of get used to what the shape is and breathe into it newly. So I've noticed in my, we're still in the Gemini season, the sun is in Gemini, and one of the things that Gemini rules is actually like this affinity towards new gadgets, new electronics, new technology, but more gadgets and tools that help you or communicate. So a lot of electronics, of course, fit into that. But I've noticed that one of my problems with being a good social media user or victim or proprietor and using that platform in my business, I've noticed that I really don't like repeating myself. I really don't like using images again. If I've put them up, they're there. So I think of my whole Instagram. This is totally wrong. You should not do this. But for instance, I think of it as like kind of a one piece that you can look at all of it instead of a time sensitive thing that no one's going to scroll all the way through theoretically. You know, that someone is like just looking for that top first couple moments of pictures that you can show. But I get so caught up that I don't like repeating myself. I find that to be true in the visual arts. And so then when I'm in a pose like this, I also notice, I don't, there isn't actually repeats. Because when we come into the yin practice, it's like familiar to how it was maybe yesterday or last week. But we're at such a different moment, such a different place every time that we come to our yoga mat, that we can really have this sense of being new in a pose, or being like finding that newness about how can I breathe into it? How does it feel now? It's because it's not exactly the same. It's a little bit different. And ironically, as much as I don't like to repeat myself in social media, in classes I repeat myself all the time. In stories to my friends, I'm sure I repeat myself all the time. This repetition of having practice, that's on purpose, repeating this action of coming to your mat, surrendering to what you can do today, even if it's not what you wished you could do, or not what you could do yesterday, or if it's amazing, all of those things. But this appreciation newly, again and again, returning to something is part of our deepening of relationship. And then start to unwind your left side. and just come to center in your child's pose. And again, yogi's choice. Does it feel better to have your arms stretched out in front of you, or do you want to take them back behind you in embryo or seed pose? Sometimes you have to do both of them to figure out which one feels most right. And then slide out of the pose. You can wiggle, you can wriggle, you could even, crawl around a little bit, whatever feels right. And then we're going to move very, very slowly into our Sphinx pose. Like a snail pace to your Sphinx. Adjust your legs, making it comfortable to how your spine feels. If it feels good today, take your legs wide. If it feels a little sensitive, take your legs closer together. So while the sun is in its last little couple of days, I'm trying to remember what date it is, while the sun is still in Gemini, we can talk a little further about Gemini. It's an air sign. And Gemini is the twins. And the ruler of Gemini is Mercury. Now, how the archetypes fit together, every sign has a ruler, a planetary ruler. And they're very similar. But in our zodiac signs, we find more of this part of like our personality, like all much more, I don't know how I want to say that, much more, not as abstract, much more kind of incorporated into what it is to be human in this mission, whether you take it on the very basic level of living on Earth for one lifetime, or if you take it to the cosmic level of living repeated Earth-time lives to become more like the sun. But in this mercurial, ever-changing experience, there's a quality we can start to understand how Gemini is ruled by Mercurius. It's mixing all my languages up into one, making up my new language today. But how you see this Mercurius nature being like Mercury in Gemini is that Gemini has, it's changeable. So sometimes a butterfly could have that, changing from one flower to the next, moving from one thing to the next. Or we understand that with Gemini, that ability is that you can talk to anybody. You can connect to anything. Mercury delivers our capacity to understand, to think with our left brain, and therefore be understood. And so usually limits that we put on how far Mercury can reach is more our limits than how far Mercury could actually reach. Now, yogi's choice, either stay in Sphinx, or you can already extend into a seal pose. And while you're in Sphinx or Seal, take your chin and turn your chin to the right. And you're going to make a nice lift of your chin and then a kissy face, like you're blowing kisses to that whole side of your room, of the world, of the universe. And then bring your chin to center and turn your chin towards your left shoulder. Lift up your chin, feeling the action in your neck and pursing your lips, squeezing your lips together, puckering up your lips, and reaching. And then come back to center and straight up with your chin. And one last time, imagine you can kiss the stars, you can kiss the whole sky. And then release your chin and take 5 more full deep breaths. And as you come down on your 6th breath, you're going to move into sleeping lizard with your right side. So you have your right elbow and your right knee bent, and then your left ear on the ground. Keeping your right arm and leg bent while you're looking to the right, just stretch your left arm out behind you. And then tuck your right toes under and push with your foot and help roll yourself onto the left side of your body and step your right foot behind your left leg. Now this might be plenty for you. If you want to go deeper into the more of the shoulder opener, stretch your right arm up, bend your elbow no, you're not really bending your elbow. You're reaching your arm, you're bending your lower elbow. See if you can hold hands. But once you have your hands holding, you want to make sure that you can reach your hands so they're coming straight out of your shoulder. If you can't, you can keep reaching for your bottom hand, or you can bend your elbow, wrapping your arm behind you as you continue to slowly and softly roll open your hips. Feel what it feels like to breathe in this shape. Notice how your breath actually most likely makes it feel a little better. So we notice both, the shadow and the light side of Mercury for each one of us. Even if we don't explicitly have Gemini in our chart, or no planets in Gemini activating that archetype, we all have Mercury and we all have areas of our chart that are naturally ruled by Gemini. So we always have a little quality of everything. And this Mercury, this left brain, has been a quality that it's cultivated everywhere. So everyone else trying to understand and be understood, it makes it very active pool, and like someone else's Mercury, it ignites your Mercury and you start thinking too. Having conversations. But you know how hard it is to get your left brain sometimes just to like chill. It's like time to go to sleep or just enjoy something, be in the present moment, and like your brain goes, I'm thinking about this thing. And so as much as it's an asset and socially so wonderful to have kind of this curiosity and this movement, full thinking and attention, the shadow side of it is that we can't direct our attention as we intended to. And it's a moment to moment practice, even just to keep concentration. That's part of why it is one of the elements of yoga that you're working on keeping your concentration, strengthening it, learning that helps you become a master of your own attention, that it can't just be yanked around and pulled here and there and wherever somebody else wants it, but you can direct your attention. You can guide your own thinking. Dharanya, concentration, and dhyana, meditation. So we have to concentrate in order to meditate. And a meditation practice, even when you start on the smallest level, helps your capacity to concentrate. So start to roll onto your belly, moan and groan a little bit, and then come into sleeping lizard on the left side. So you have your left elbow bent, your left knee bent, and then your right ear on the ground as you're looking to your left. For most of us, it's a very comfortable pose, so it's restful, doesn't hurt very much, doesn't get too intense. So it frees us to be more in this dream state. And in the indigenous Indians, American Indians, the stories about lizard is lizard dreaming. So they're connected to the dream life and to this, what happens. And when our body is really relaxed, we can kind of go up into that dream world. Though it's very easy to go up into that list-making world and this like the monkey mind world where your left brain is going, no, we've got to figure out how we're going to do all of this, all of this, all of that. So you need not only to relax your body for dreaming, but you need to relax your control, your attention. Quite the opposite of meditation or concentration. All right. So while you're here with your left arm and left knee bent, looking to your left, you're going to stretch your right arm straight out from your shoulder and pushing with your left hand and coming onto the toes of your left foot. Roll onto the outside of your right thigh and then step your left foot behind your right leg. And either stay here or extend your left arm up to the sky, spin your palm towards the floor, reach your hand down, see if you can hold hands, and then bring your arms so they're stretching straight out of your shoulders. For a lot of people, their head or neck can't relax enough for their head to go onto the ground. So you always can put a pillow underneath your head or a yoga block. Feel what it feels like to breathe into this shape on that side. We have a certain resistance to this changeable energy because it feels uncertain and insecure or, untrustworthy nearly. And you'll notice that each one of us has a place in their life where we try to be predictive. So it can start on all sorts of different levels. Plan a menu for the week and actually follow it. Very mundane. We set intentions, we aim our work towards a goal, and this can be very helpful. And this inner resistance to change most noticeably comes into our loving relationships or our positive situations, because when we like something, when we're happy with something, we don't want it to change. We don't want that to go away. We don't want to lose that connection to life and to joy. And so that's part of where our worry and our monkey mind, still connected to the same archetype, right, can really be kind of your worst enemy or one of your biggest assets. I sometimes, when there is a habit to worry, you need to actually be disciplined at coming straight back to this present moment. What do I have right now? I've got my hands, I've got my ability to breathe, I'm here, I have a roof over my head, I've got food to eat, whatever you need to remind yourself of this present moment. Because worry, it's making stuff up, it's putting stuff into the emptiness that would be horrible if they happened. Worry is, it's not constructive often unless it leads to you taking positive action. But often it's just in the brain, and we're making our own selves uneasy. When you feel like you're starting to come into balance, take a full inhale, and with your exhale, sigh out your breath, and then start to move out of the posture, returning to lie back onto your belly. You can wiggle around a little bit, let your hips move. After any yin pose, the movement is such a good reminder that even our fragileness, even our tenderness can kind of dissipate at a moment's notice. And we're going to move into Anahata Asana. So the posture of the seat of the heart, the posture of the heart. Come up onto your hands and knees, and then slide your hands forward, bringing your forehead onto the ground. You also might like to just bend your forearm and have your forearm as a pillow. But the most potent part of the pose is that you have your heart bowing towards the earth, dropping towards the ground, and your hips are over your knees. So your butt's up in the air like you just don't care. I usually have my toes stretched out, but you can experiment, see what works for you. So I find myself often when I'm talking about Mercury or if I'm talking about Gemini, coming back to this connection of, Mercury is the messenger of the gods. And a good messenger works both ways. It can deliver a message, it can, take a message back and deliver it and start the process all over again. And I always think about how often we are fixated on relationships and we often have a lopsided approach to them. So quite naturally in our own relationships, like it's all about me, it tends to be about our own feelings. That's only natural. But we can get too busy with our own perspective, and then it makes it harder to connect. So a really good messenger isn't loyal just to one perspective, right? It hops from God to God, delivering the messages back and forth, messenger of the gods. And as we know, we study these archetypes, whether they're the zodiac or the planets or the Roman or Greek gods or even the Hindi gods, any of these archetypal formative forces kind of things, we recognize that each one of those archetypes, we share a little bit in that archetype. That truly to deliver the message, we have to understand it so we can deliver it. I think it's really hard to remember gibberish. We remember language. We remember through words, we remember through images. But nonsensical is much harder to remember than things that are connected that we understood. So there's a little nature of, to communicate with the other, we have to become a little bit like the other. We have to be their twin. This is why Gemini can do it so well. And in order to do this, to actively become like twinning to the person we're talking to, or speaking the same language, connecting on common ground, or whatever it is that facilitates that connection and understanding, we have to be a little bit like it. We have to try to feel into what it'd be like to be in their shoes. What it would be like to have their biography with those specific things, how they happen to them. In a way, there's this element of mimicry to understand. When you think about the substance Mercury, it does. It has that reflectiveness as it wiggles and jiggles. And then start to move out of the pose, feel what feels right, either sliding forward or reaching back or just going flat. And then roll up your chest and cross your ankles and spin on your yoga mat so you can come into dragonfly with your heels still on your yoga mat if you'd like. You can also, it's also nice to have if you're flexible, if you're going all the way down to the floor. We're going to do lateral dragonfly first. But if you're eventually going down to the floor, sometimes it's nice to have a blanket there for you can grab. So take your legs as wide as is comfortable. Let your heart lift up. turn your gaze to your left and slide your right hand down your right leg. Stretch it far and start to drop your head. You can catch your head with your hand by bending your elbow. And then take your left arm, stretch it up actively, a little bit of the yang. And then once you've stretched, drape it over your ear, maybe reaching your hand to your toes, maybe not at all, letting it wrap around your ear. And notice what it's like to breathe in that shape today. If we, when we learn about the zodiac or when we hear about archetypes, you can feel how when an archetype is described, especially one that is strong in you, it's nearly like you can feel those parts of you drawn out or seen. Like there's a sensation nearly. So if we were to take up astrology as a practice and actually, work on saying, like for instance, that Gemini archetype, like for some people, it doesn't come naturally to talk a lot. It doesn't come naturally to connect to people that are very different. So if we think about this practice element, like going inside and going, okay, can I pretend to be more like a Gemini and dare to just like say something or go up and meet someone that I wouldn't normally meet? In a way, these, trying on some of these archetypes or noticing that you don't have one isn't to say like, oh, it's none of your business, or that you should always go with what's just comfortable for you. No, but if we take astrology up as this idea of we want to actually ultimately balance all these archetypes so we can feel really centered in ourselves. So ideally, I not only want the capacity to speak to everyone, but I also want to know when to shut up and listen. I also want to know when to be silent and observe, So all of these archetypes, when we take them up in a healthy way and a balanced way, help us be more of ourselves. So I think it's actually quite interesting with this idea of like, oh, if I practice just playing with embodying these opposite archetypes than the ones I have, will I actually maybe then understand more people? So if we don't feel like we naturally have this Mercury way to connect with everyone, by trying it on, we actually will start to understand why it works, I think. Now with your inhale, lift up. Turn your gaze to the right. And then slide your left arm blind down your left leg. Bend your elbow, catch your head. Stretch your right arm up to the sky. And then reach it first, and then soften and drape it. I think one of the ways that we need to move into this new paradigm is really, it's really letting our consciousness evolve to understand that the world isn't just happening to us, but we are also happening to the world. That it's this really, that's this back and forth, it's this mirroring, it's this mimicry. It's this ever ongoing dance. So by imagining ourselves to be every one of the other that we encounter, we more and more will actually understand that we are one humanity in one world. That your future cannot live apart from my future. If we both want to move with the evolution of mankind. You know, Gemini is the third archetype in the zodiac year. And so you have Aries, and then you have Taurus. You have this fire, you have this earth, you have these opposites, so to say. And then comes Gemini, which is really this relationship in between. You give me two polarities and you have a relationship in between, and that's the air in between us. That's the place we have to bridge by communicating, by working to understand, by working to be understood. With your next inhale, start to lift up. We can take a little yang interlude here. Press your palms down to the floor in between your thighs and lift up your hips, or maybe lift up your legs and your hips. Maybe shake out your legs a little bit. Maybe do a little dance. Woo! And then coming down first with a neutral spine, so really keeping your chest open. Hinge as far forward as it works for you. And once you've come to your edge, then figure out how to support yourself with your elbows or your hands or your, forearms, your chest. And then soften into curving your spine. Noticing what it feels like to breathe into this shape. So sometimes Mercury is referred to as neutral, having no gender. Other times it's referred to as being both genders, hermaphrodite. My language is really tricky for me. So right now, up in the sky, Mercury is conjunct Venus in Cancer, 0 degrees Cancer. And they're still both close enough to, they're both squaring Neptune. And so there can be a little bit of confusion in areas that are ruled by Mercury. Or a little bit of dreaming or visioning, or even expressions of higher love. But a square is always kind of a relationship that has tension. It can be good, it can be bad, but it's definitely intense. And thereby a little bit of friction, which is, brings us warmth, makes sparks fly, can burn things down. But we'll feel a little bit of this like confusion or misunderstandings revealed or not understood, or Notice where your mind is at this part of class, where your attention goes when it's quiet. I think this is also another kind of secret layer of Gemini. Where there has to be capacity to receive message from the gods. Where do you see them? Do you notice them in the coincidences? Do you notice in your dreams? Do you notice where your feet lead you, who you run into, what things happen simultaneously? And start to slowly walk your hands in, lifting up. And bring your left heel in first, and then step with your right foot to the outside of your left knee. So we're going to finish with a little bit of a yang twist today. So feel your sit bones on the ground. Be able to push down through the ball of your big toe on your right foot. You can take your right hand right to your lower back, right on the yoga mat. Push down with your right hand and then stretch up with your left hand. Now just reach from hand to hand. Take a full inhale, lifting up your chest. And with your exhale, twist to your right, bringing your elbow to the outside of your knee. So taking this actively, you can push down through the ball of your right foot. Notice how it helps your knee come up to center. Maybe for me right now, it reminds me to pull my belly in a little bit more, move my microphone box here. You want to find that the twist moves from the base of your spine, spiraling up your spine. Feel what it feels like to breathe here. And then let your chin come back around to your left shoulder. So you're in the S curve. And then let your body follow your face and unwind. No, it doesn't really work that way, does it? We're going to take the other side. So I got all twisted up. That Neptune really got me. Reach back onto your sit bones. Switch your legs. Woo-hoo. With a little bling. Find that your left foot is pushing down to the ground, especially the ball of your big toe. Let your right foot is just in front of your hip. Both sit bones on the ground. Take your left hand to the base of your spine. Push down with the ball of your big left toe as you push down with your left hand. And then stretch your right arm up. Reach up. Let your heart lift up. And then with your exhale, twist to your left. So you might have your elbow bent and pushing into your knee. I often like to have my arm extended, apparently. You can also slide your fingers right underneath your bottom shin for like a half bind. Or maybe you're flexible and you're taking the full bind. But wherever you are, twist your spine from the base to the top. And then let your chin come back around over your right shoulder. And then release the twist. And set up for Shavasana. Placing your feet on the ground, knees bent. You can lower yourself down to the floor and then lift up your hips and just roll your lower back down to the ground. If your lower back ever hurts, just take your feet as wide as the yoga mat and let your knees drop back together with your feet about halfway down the yoga mat. Otherwise, stretch your legs long, like you're about to make a sand angel or a snow angel, palms open to receive. You also can lift up your ribs, pinch your shoulders together, pull your shoulders down your spine, then drop your ribs to the ground. Close your eyes. Shavasana. With your next inhale, invite your breath to the edges of your body. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Smile your beautiful smile. With your next inhale, stretch your hands, your arms up over your head. Wiggle your feet away from your hands. Your toes away from your fingers. And then with your exhale, hug your knees in and roll over onto your right hand side. Feel the vibrancy in all of your ever-changing cells in your body. And help yourself up into a comfortable seated position. Bring your hands to heart center. Feel your sit bones on the ground, wiggle your spine, and fill up your chest with lightness. Lift up an image of the person you dedicated your class to. Empty your breath. Take an inhale through your nose for 1 Om. Bring your prayer hands to your third eye. Invite the divine light. And as we bow forward, together we say, Namaste. So much love. Make some noise. Wow! Woo! Maybe give yourself a round of applause for being wonderful and doing your practice. Yay! Thank you so much.